With me, Bill Samuels. Our first guest today is Assemblywoman Claudia Tenney, whose district encompasses parts of the upstate counties of Oneida, Herkimer, Otsego, Delaware, Ulster, Sullivan, and Orange. Now, I have a couple unusual reasons why I'm excited to have Claudia here. One thing that I've read, which I'm very proud, that she has a son. It's a son, right, who's in the Marines in active service. And I really, I just applaud the service of anybody in our country. And I'm sure you're very proud of him. But there's a second reason, Claudia. Now, this one may upset you. I think we could be relatives.
We could be. I don't know.
I'll tell you why.
Related?
I'll tell you why. We'll have to research it off. My family's all from upstate New York, but on my mother's side, we are descended from the Tenneys. And I have an incredible background of when they came here, I think 1638 or something like this, and then it traces down up to Fulton, New York, and all of that. So offline, we'll see if we're relatives, and if so, you and I, from different political spectrums, can solve the country's problems. How about that?
That's great.
But anyway...
I'll just give you a tip to ponder, though. My grandfather was born in Belfast, Northern Ireland in 1900, so he emigrated to the United States.
Well, we all have it, and as you may or may not know, I'm from Hopewell, New York, right out between Canandaigua and Geneva, and I'm a proud upstater, which is where I grew up. But anyway, Assemblywoman Tenney recently won the Republican primary in the race to replace retiring GOP Republican Congressman Richard Hanna. And she's now locked in a very closely watched national race against the Democrat Kim Myers. Outside of her career in elective office, Assemblywoman Tenney has an extremely impressive resume as a lawyer, co-owner of a community weekly newspaper and publishing company, and a TV and radio host. So afterwards, if we don't do well in this interview, you can give Morgan and I...
Put us out of work.
Yeah, exactly. And even in her early professional career, now this is interesting, she was the only American employed by the Consulate General of Yugoslavia, during which time she acted as an intermediary between ABC Sports and the Yugoslavian government in the lead up to the 1984 Winter Olympics. She certainly has diverse experience that if she is elected to Congress, I think she will play an important role, advancing her particular views. So I'm looking forward to speaking for the first time with Assemblywoman and possible relative of mine and getting her take on all the latest in national and state affairs. So Assemblywoman. Woman. Oh, I have 8 sisters. I have no excuse for that.
Oh, wow.
Welcome to Effective Radio, and thank you for joining and taking the time to join me and Morgan on our show.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be on and listening to all that bio. Wow, very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I had
Did I do all that?
Yes, I had.
If you didn't, you're in trouble. I
had someone on, and after I read the bio, the guy said, "That's not me. I don't think. I don't recognize me." But anyway, this is sort of an oddball question, but the fact that you had some experience that related to sports and anything, are you going to be watching the Olympics and waving the American flag? Do you have anything to share with us on how the Summer Games can be an uplifting event for America?
Well, actually, of course, I'm watching the Summer Olympics. I'm also an athlete, although basketball. I was the starting center for my basketball team in high school, and I also was the reigning club champion, district champion in women's golf in my area of Central New York. So I used to have a 7 handicap, but I don't have that anymore.
By the way, that is incredible.
Yes, the one sport that we do have in the Olympics, which was the love that I've had is for horses. I showed hunters and jumpers. And my trainer was actually a guy named Michael Matz, who was an Olympian and a medalist in the Olympics in the past, in the Summer Olympics. But it was something that I did as part of my life, which I really enjoyed, and I still love to show and ride if I can. I've judged horse shows, so that's just another part of my life that I always wanted to pursue. And now here I am.
Well, you're running. I mean, you're now running for office, but that is like an athletic event.
Well, Assemblywoman, in 2014, you primaried the incumbent congressman from your district, Richard Hanna, losing by only 6 points. This week, Hanna, who is retiring from Congress, in part, it has been speculated, to avoid another challenge from you, made national news by becoming the first sitting member of the House to cross party lines and say he would vote for Hillary Clinton in November. What's your take on his announcement?
I'm not surprised at all. Just as I was the first to come out against Sheldon Silver back in 2012, I was the first to call for his resignation for corruption back then, and I ran against Richard Hanna in 2014. I tried to expose him and say that this guy is not advancing Republican principles. He should be running as a Democrat. And here he is today, not advancing Republican principles. He has a very liberal voting record. And I respect, as you said earlier, I respect my colleagues on the Democratic and the Republican side. But you have to be honest with the voters and the party that brung you there, as they say. So if you want to run as a Republican and you want to be the standard bearer for the Republican values and the Republican platform, then stand for those Republican values. Don't be a turncoat. And after getting elected, go ahead against the party that put you there. And, one thing, I respect people with differing views. I think many people don't agree, but I think the Republican Party actually is very open to having a lot of different views in the party. Because one thing we all stand for as Republicans, and I think everyone agrees, is we support the Constitution, and we support freedom, and we support a strong national defense. That's something that's in our platform. And, Richard Hanna has moved the other direction. He's going to support someone like Hillary Clinton. And to be perfectly honest with you, I could probably support an honest liberal Democrat if I had to, but I cannot support Hillary Clinton. I do not think that as the mother of an active duty Marine, as someone who's fought corruption and cronyism in Albany and stood up to those types of people in power, she is not the right choice. She is not someone that a Republican and acclaimed conservative, as Richard Hanna has run on, should be supporting in this election. As vulgar and as much as you may not like Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton is the poster child for corruption and cronyism, I think. And I just don't see how Richard could do that.
I clearly respect the Republican Party, but Donald Trump bothers me. He doesn't seem like a Republican with real principles. So are you strongly supporting him in your race? Are you sort of being neutral, not making comments and focusing on the issues of your district? In other words, do you have any reservations at all about any of his positions? How are you playing this? It must be an unusually difficult thing to do.
Well, here's the biggest problem that you have with Donald Trump. The voters are the people who chose Donald Trump. He is the rank and file in the party are disgusted with the Republican Party. And, Donald Trump says he's going to put America first. He's going to make us great again. And, Hillary puts herself before everybody else, including foreign interests. She put herself ahead of the people in Benghazi and left them there. Those types of things affect parents of people who have children in the military. When you see our elected officials, our children, or someone's dying in harm's way, when she can sit there and stand on the tarmac and lie to these grieving parents and then go on to a congressional hearing, and in that congressional hearing saying what difference at this point does it make, that doesn't make me feel good as an American and the mother of an active duty service person. So, Donald Trump makes me cringe at times, but I like that he's standing up against the establishment. I like that he is against bad trade deals. He's supporting, renegotiation of things like NAFTA and the TPP and the TPA, and he's going to secure the border, which I think is a huge problem that we're not getting from these other from Hillary Clinton. And another thing is, who's going to appoint the next Supreme Court justices?
But what's your response to his remarks about the Khan family and staying focused on it? It just seems stupid and wrong. Is that an example of what you call a cringe factor for you?
Well, I looked at that and I thought that's something that a seasoned politician wouldn't go there. And also politicians who are often controlled by their handlers don't stand up on the stage and take calls and endless media, sitting there in an open press conference like Donald Trump does, subjecting himself to the gotcha, which is in the media. No, I didn't. You know,
you don't think that's a cringe factor for
but,
you?
You know, I'm going to tell you something that was very interesting that was said to me by my son, who spent the winter in a cave in Norway and emerged after all these primaries were in after the primaries in the presidential race, and he has no opinion one way or another in the race.
Right.
But he found it interesting that the media was just scoffing and askance and Donald Trump just isn't presidential. And my son kind of laughed, as someone who is a student of history, and he's phenomenal what he can rattle off. You should have him on your show someday if you ever have a show on.
Well, we got to bring him back and run for office.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. So anyway, one day he said to me, I think it's funny that they're all talking about not taking a side, but who's presidential and who isn't. He said, when we came to this country, we left the monarchy, we left the snobbiness and the smugness of Europe to bring here the ugly American who is, the rugged individualist who's out doing, making money, being successful, or whatever it is that they want to do, pursuing their own happiness, which is the founding principle of our country, and not getting hung up in political correctness and a lot of this that I think has really caused, a shift in our society to a point of ridiculousness. Now, does Donald Trump cross the line even for me? When I try to look at, what's going on, yes, he does. But again, are we going to judge someone by their social appearances and what they say, or are they going to be a strong, decisive leader? Now, I'm not sure. The jury's still out on Donald Trump on that issue, but I'm willing to roll the dice for him because I know exactly what Hillary Clinton is. I know what she's going to do. She's going to continue to serve herself. Now, maybe Donald Trump will do that in the end, but I don't know. Right now, he's talking, when he gets back on message, about trade, about helping small businesses. I'm a small business. My family we've been in business for 70 years. We're a small business. We've never had a single government contract. We rely on our local business community. Our family farms are in crisis. We had another one in 22nd Congressional District go under recently because of the very unfriendly business atmosphere and the intrusion of government that makes it impossible for a dairy farmer, the people who provide our food for our tables, to survive in upstate New York and to survive in New York. We need to revive our small business community. Those are the people that create 70% of our jobs. We need to stop this corrupt cronyism, taking hundreds of millions of dollars, in the case like a Startup New York, and putting that into these big businesses that when the government money runs out, they run too. And what are we left with? We're left with unsubsidized businesses that are struggling to hang on in New York. They either close or they leave. And that's the hope that Trump provides, and why I think he's had a groundswell of support in this Rust Belt community that I'm in, where we are. We have lost so much manufacturing.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And that's the problem. Hillary just looks like much more self-serving cronyism. And interestingly enough, I'm running against two people. One is Kim Myers, whose family is about to get millions in subsidies from Andrew Cuomo, and they own a retail business. What's the worst? You can't find me an economist who thinks that it's good to take taxpayer money and dump it into a retail establishment. She owns a retail business, a big national chain, and we're going to take hard-earned taxpayer money out of my pocket, the pockets of all the middle-class people here, and give it to some multi-billion-dollar company. And that's an Andrew Cuomo. She's in the tank with Hillary Clinton. And then we have an independent candidate who's one of the largest donors, probably the largest donor to Hillary Clinton in my community, and was there helping Andrew Cuomo with Startup New York.
About your taking on the establishment, that gets to my next question. This week in a congressional primary in Kansas, we saw a microcosm of a fracture in the Republican Party between conservative members, many of whom were swept into office by the Tea Party movement and who have since formed the House Freedom Caucus, versus the more traditional mainstream establishment of the party. Prominent Freedom Caucus member Congressman Tim Holzkamp was defeated by political newcomer Roger Marshall, who was supported in his insurgent run by big money from outside groups. On which side do you fall in this political divide within your philosophical divide within your party? Are you inclined to join the House Freedom Caucus? And what do you think so far of Paul Ryan's performance as Speaker?
I am not. I've never been someone who joins a club, and as someone who has fought against the establishment, I don't see myself joining a caucus. I respect the members of the Freedom Caucus and a lot of what they stand for, but I'm not one that's going to join some kind of group like that. I have my own. I don't know even if I line up completely with all what they stand for. I like some of the things that they stand for. I do think that race, from what I've read about it, and on admittedly I've only read like one piece on it, looks like it was a false flag advertising campaign put on by the U.S. Chamber to try to paint Holzkamp as, not representing his district, and for some of these strong conservative votes that he took, and trying to look like he was against the district. I really don't know the detail of it, but I am a constitutionalist. I am an equal opportunity advocate. I advocate for my constituents, whether it's going after Sheldon Silver or even Dean Skelos, who was the Republican majority leader who is using his office to benefit himself. It doesn't matter to me what party someone's in. If you are upholding the Constitution, whether it's the state, in my case, in New York State Assembly, or in the U.S. government, we have to protect this republic. I mean, this is what it's all about. If we don't protect freedom and our rights in this republic, we're going to be lost. We're going to lose this great nation that's been around for a little over 200 years if we don't start standing for something and electing people who have the strength. And I don't mean to stand against the party, but to and again, stand for our principles. I think the Democrats who supported JFK when he was the last presidential candidate to come to our area, other than Donald Trump in the last 60 years, I don't think the Democratic Party is the party of JFK anymore. And I think the Republicans have also not really stood for what we're supposed to believe in our platforms. And we need to rejoin those views again, both sides. And it's good to have two sides. It's good to have us
absolutely
having ideas against each other. I love to have a Democrat that is, really sincerely promoting Democratic views and not just promoting cronyism. Which we have the same problem in the Republican Party in many ways.
Do you see that problem with Paul Ryan, or do you think that he has been different?
I don't really know Paul Ryan that well. I have to say this. I met him in D.C. Earlier this year, and he seems like a stand-up guy. He seems like someone who understands the economy pretty well. I don't agree with some of his views. I think he's supportive of TPP and some of the globalism, which I don't agree with him on, but I'm not sure where he stands on that today. But I like him personally. I like him better than what it seems to be what John Boehner was doing. And I don't see Paul Ryan so much taking shots at our Republican platform. And that's my major objection with Richard Hanna. I don't care if you want to go and vote Democrat, for example, but don't denigrate the party platform and the values of the party. That's totally different issue. And if you are going to denigrate the platform, then become a Democrat and run honestly as a Democrat. That's why we have a two-party system. You should be running and carrying the banner of of the principles you stand for. So, I think Paul Ryan seems like he's trying. He's a decent guy. He's trying to retain power by trying to find some kind of common ground between the Republican House generally and the Freedom Caucus. And I think the both sides offer a viewpoint that I think is worthy of our contention.
Well, do you think, I hate to interrupt you, but do you think that Trump or Pence are correct? Pence at least endorsed Ryan. Do you agree with Trump not endorsing Paul Ryan? It seems, what's your view on that?
Trump is just, he's an unorthodox candidate. I mean, he has chosen not, I don't know, I think there was some issue in the beginning. Didn't Paul Ryan sort of hesitate in supporting him?
Sure.
So I don't know if that's what's going on. I mean, I don't want to get into the minutia of this. I know we need to focus on something that I've done from day one, from my first race in 2010, and my focus has been to stand up for our small business community, to reduce our tax burden and our regulations, to allow a free market system and a fair system to operate, and allow our small business community to thrive, because that's going to be the solution. It's not going to be the cronyism. We've tried, and it's failed over and over in New York, in our area. We've had empire zones. We've had empowerment zones. We've had all kinds of zones in Startup New York and all these cronyist programs we've tried. How about just reducing taxes, reducing regulation? And
I'm with you. I'm with you. And I'm going to put you...
Democrats agree with that, too.
I'm going to put you on the spot. And someday, you and I will have a fun debate. I'll be on the left, you'll be on the right. But I think you're about to agree with me on two of my hot buttons.
Okay.
In 2017, there'll be a vote on whether we have a people's convention. The last one was in '67. My father, Howard Samuels, who ran for governor many times, was a big supporter of that. Will you support a people's convention in 2017, which would take the power from Cuomo and the legislature to think of major changes? Have you taken a position on it?
I support the idea, but what concerns me is who's going to be appointing the people to serve on this people's convention. Because if it's going to be just more of Cuomo's cronies and the cronies from the Democratic-controlled assembly, which is lopsided at 107 to 43, you're going to get the same thing. You're not going to get any changes.
Well, I'm just going to make a point. You and I could discuss this for ages. In 1967, only 7% of the delegates were current legislators. People ran that were activists, judges, professors like Scotty Campbell from the Maxwell School. My view is very simple. If we don't see change in the cancer in Albany in the 2017 session, and I'm not optimistic, I say give it a chance. But anyway, Assemblywoman,
I don't disagree with you on that.
It's been a lot of fun to get to know you. And while I'm a Democrat and you're a Republican, I think you've positioned your conservative views in a very articulate way. And so we're out of time, but I hope sometime if you're in New York City or you get elected, we can have breakfast or lunch. And I wish you the very best of luck and also the best of luck to your son.
Thank you so much. It's ClaudiaForCongress.com. I greatly appreciate the time.
Great. Thanks, Claudia.
Thank you.
You were listening to Upstate Assemblywoman and current congressional